All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are talking about something that's really changing the game, Agentic AI. This is a huge leap forward, trust me. We're moving way beyond simple chatbots. We're talking about AI systems that can actually think, plan, and get things done all on their own. We're going to peel back the layers and see exactly how these things are built. Let's get to it. Think about it. Most of the AI we interact with, well, it just reacts, right? You ask it something, it gives you an answer. But what if it could do more? What if you could just give it a big, complex goal and it would figure out all the steps and just handle it? That's the whole idea behind Agent AI. And that's the world we're going to explore today. So here's how we'll break it down. First, we'll get a solid handle on what Agentic AI even is. Then, we'll look at the big challenge. How do you actually make an AI autonomous? After that, we'll get into the cool part, the architectural patterns that make it all work. We'll even see an agent in action. And finally, we'll talk about what this means for all of us.
Okay, first things first, what are we really talking about with Agentic AI? This isn't just another tech buzzword. It's a fundamental shift in thinking. We're moving away from AI as a simple assistant that just follows orders to an AI that's an active, autonomous actor.
You know, the best way to think about it is as a digital worker. It's not just a tool you use, it's an employee you hire. It's an AI that you can give a high-level goal to, and it will figure out the steps, use the tools it needs, and see the project through to the end. Now, that sounds pretty incredible, doesn't it? But as you can imagine, it comes with a massive, massive challenge. I mean, how do you give an AI a mind of its own? How do you actually engineer true autonomy? It's really, really hard. And here's the absolute heart of the problem. We need to push AI from just reacting to whatever we type to actually reasoning about its tasks. It needs to think ahead, anticipate roadblocks, and build a strategy, pretty much like we do. So how do we pull that off? Well, it's not some single magical new algorithm that solves everything. The answer is much more elegant, actually. It's all about smart design, using something called architectural design patterns. Think of them as proven, repeatable blueprints for building really sophisticated AI. And that brings us to the core of this whole explainer. We're about to look at the architect's blueprints for intelligence. These are the key patterns that engineers are using right now to build these agents. So our first pattern is probably one of the most important ones for making AI useful in the real world. It's called tool use. And it's all about getting around the fact that, a language model on its own is just a brain in a jar. The genius here is that we're not trying to cram all the world's knowledge and skills into one single AI. Instead, we teach the AI how to use the tools that already exist. It doesn't need to be a math genius, it just needs to know when to pull out a calculator. It doesn't need to know everything, it just needs to know how to use a search engine. And this process is so simple, but so powerful. First, the agent looks at the problem and thinks, okay, what do I need to do here? Then it looks at its toolkit and says, aha, that's the right tool for the job. And finally, it uses the tool, gets the result, and uses that new information to decide what to do next. Okay, so an agent can use tools. Great, but how does it get better at it? How does it stop itself from making the same stupid mistakes over and over? Well, that leads us right into our next pattern, reflection. This is where things start to feel, well, almost human. Reflection is basically self-criticism for an AI. The agent tries something, and then it stops and asks itself, how did that go? Was that the best way to do it? What can I learn from this? This loop is how it actually improves and gets smarter over time. So we have got an agent that can act and can learn. But what happens when you give it a really big, complicated goal? It can't just react its way through that. It needs a game plan. And that's where our third pattern comes in, planning. Look, if you tell an agent to, say, launch a new product, it can't just do that. The planning pattern allows it to take that massive goal and break it down into a whole series of smaller, doable subtasks. It literally creates its own to-do list, which makes these huge projects actually achievable. All right, theory is great, but let's see how these patterns actually work together in the real world. I think seeing it in action makes it all click. Let's give our little digital worker a job to do. So the task we're going to give it is something we can all relate to, but it's actually pretty complex for an AI. Plan a 2-day weekend trip to the mountains. Okay, so the agent gets the goal. What's its first move? It immediately uses the tool use pattern. It knows it needs outside information, so it runs a search for available cabins, and this is key, it also pulls up the weather forecast for that weekend. And here's where it gets really smart. The data comes back, and it's bad news, rain all weekend.
The agent now kicks into the reflection pattern. It looks at the facts and critiques its own unstated plan. It thinks, wait a minute, the forecast is rain. My whole idea of going on a bunch of hikes is completely flawed. So what does it do? It doesn't just crash. It doesn't give up. The planning pattern kicks in. It adapts and creates a new strategy. It thinks, okay, new plan. I'm not just looking for any cabin. I'm going to specifically find a cabin with good indoor activities, like a fireplace or a game room. And just like that, it solved the problem. That little example shows just how powerful these patterns are when you combine them. So let's pull back and ask the big question. What does this new way of building AI mean for us and for our future? I think the most important thing to take away from all this is that agentic AI is not magic. It's not some mysterious black box we can't understand. It's just good engineering. It's built from a toolkit of these smart, understandable design patterns. Patterns like tool use, reflection, and planning are like the Lego bricks for building the next generation of intelligence. This quote just nails it. We are really changing our entire relationship with technology. We're moving from a world where we instruct computers, telling them every little step, to a world where we collaborate with them. We give them goals, and they help us figure out how to get there. And these design patterns, they're the shared language that makes it all possible. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. We are all, in a way, becoming the architects of what's next. As we piece these patterns together to create more and more capable autonomous agents, the really important question isn't just how we build them, but what kind of future we are choosing to build with them. Thanks so much for watching.